need to reappoint a treasurer. That was done a year ago. We've been, I think, cycling about 2-year cycle. That was done about a year ago, and so that, I would like to change that to chair and vice chair, because I'm on working 2 years. Who is that, Penny? So if we could amend the agenda to show and officers to show chair and vice chair. Okay, thank you. Now we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We've got a full set of board members excluding Vernon, and I've not heard from Vernon, so we do have a quorum, so we can proceed. We'll take a minute, you slow down here. Let's take a minute to review the meeting from the minutes from the March meeting. They're in your package. Is there any additions or corrections? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Next in the package, the treasurer's report. Mr. Treasurer.
Well, first of all, you'll see reflected, we transferred $1,500 from the large account to the small account so they can do their monthly payments. In the $183.93 that you see, includes QuickBooks, monthly fee of $15, the fee for reports $5. Evergy was $38, Mary Haas was $125. Some of the deposits, will be $232.07 interest, that's off the CDs. And, we got first quarter deposit of $37,250. And of that, we paid LCDC their first quarter payment of $32,781.25. And that's all the financial movements for the month.
Any questions from the board on financials? Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'm sorry, who moved? Thank you.
Sorry, I should have said that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Okay, we're gonna move on to LCDC report.
Okay, so thank you. This has been a pretty busy spring at LCDC in March. I just want to, remember that we had 9 leads, of which we submitted for 6 of those projects, and one of those we've submitted 2 sites. But then it continues to be busy in April. We've had 3, 4, 5 in April, and we've got 3 that are active right now. And so I would just say that the first one was a real estate inquiry specifically about the Gary Carlson Business Park. We have the Gary Carlson Business Park listed in CoStar and also under Lois or Location 1. So they may have seen it there, but they didn't give any information. Project Awake, a US-based consumer packaging manufacturer looking for 250,000 square feet. Existing building or 40 acres, but it had to be rail served. So I did not submit, and I listed that under my reasons we don't submit. Chart. Project Echo Track, client seeking 15 to 20 acres where they can construct 3 buildings totaling 80,000 square feet for a lithium ion battery service, distribution, and assembly facility near the I-35 corridor. So I reached out and asked how close is near. And so after talking with the project leader on that, our manager on that, we went ahead and submitted the Leavenworth Business and Technology Park for that. Doesn't matter, even if it's unlikely, it doesn't matter. That gives us more awareness for our park. Another real estate inquiry for, specifically about the Urban Hess Business Park. So I let them, they just asked again if it was still available, if the lots were still available. I gave them the information, talked about the lots, and responded with some brochures. So hopefully we'll hear back from them. As far as, we have 17 ongoing projects. Project River, about halfway down your list, has kind of, was just a few inquiries in the beginning. Now it seems like a full-fledged project. We're working with the county and with the state on that project. We had 3 meetings just this last month, just different reasons. One was specifically with the county planning and zoning people and Tom. One was to talk about locations with in regards of space along the river, and talked about the Corps of Engineers, just different reasons. So it just seems to be more active, kind of a promising project. Project Superior, I did receive an update on that. That was a client looking for an existing building or 25 acres on a greenfield site for a distribution center. We submitted the Leavenworth Business and Technology Park. They're considering right now 4 developer-controlled sites with a design team that would build the building and sell it to them. While they have not eliminated other properties, including us, they're vetting that other path right now. And then finally, we heard another update on Project KCDC, a few down from that. And the response was just that it's moving extremely slowly, which sometimes these projects do that. So that brings, so far in 2024, we've had 19 leads. We've got a lot of activity going on. Other things I'd like to mention to you, I've done a lot of marketing events lately. I was invited by KCADC and went to the Google Data Center announcement in March, towards the end of March. And although that may not seem like it has any impact on us, it's always another chance and opportunity for us to get in front of some of those real estate developers and people who go to those events. Went to an International Trade Commission in Kansas City, Women in International Business Development event, and then also a KC Tech Council. And I was invited, I'm not quite sure why I was invited, but I was glad I was. The topic was about data centers. And I met Erica Froelich from J.E. Dunn, who built data centers. The J.E. Dunn has built data centers for about 40 years, is what she told me. So we've communicated, and I just sent her some information on the Leavenworth Business and Technology Park, and just asked her to keep it in mind as she works with projects. Casey Crew, I went to a project tour, got to tour the 18th and Vine project that's going on down there. There I met Samantha Jefferson, who is going to be replacing Jill McCarthy, one of the project leads at Kansas City Area Development Council. And then from that, she called and said she'd like to come see Leavenworth County. So we did a county tour. So you just never know, these events, sometimes you wonder, should I go to this, should I not? But you just never know who you'll meet and what might come of that. April 1st, so that was the county tour with Samantha Jefferson. Nationally, I got the opportunity, I was invited to go on a Team Kansas trip, marketing trip to Phoenix. This was an extra above what we typically get to do. We usually get 2 trips. But they had such a huge response from the site selectors for this Arizona trip or dinner that they added a couple of seats, and the executive committee approved, and I went ahead and went, and there were 25 site selectors. There were 5 Kansas communities, and then there was the state team. So that included the Lieutenant Governor David Tolan, the Deputy Secretary of Business Development, the new one, Joshua Jefferson, the Business Recruitment Project Manager for the West Coast, which is Peter Ruiz, and then Matt Godina is the Assistant Secretary of Quality Places. So it was also a good opportunity to talk with them. So I got bios for all of those site selectors and met with some of them or talked with them during the networking and dinner time. So we'll be reaching out and doing some follow-up and reminding them of who we are and what we have available. I then got to go to IAMC, Industrial Asset Management Council. This is a conference in Greenville, South Carolina. This had over 500 attendees, including EDCs, site selectors, real estate developers, and also end users. They had professional development sessions, roundtables, networking, and I would say some of the most, important topics discussed was, of course, power, how much the crazy high capacity needs that are being, talked about out there by a lot of the projects, the long lead times that are out there for transformers. It can take up to 60 months to get transformers to upgrade those sites that need to be putting in 50 megawatts, or maybe even, 500 was one of the projects that we got. Workforce is another important subject, and there were all kinds of reasons or subpoints for workforce issues. But the top one was the availability and affordability of childcare. So that's a really big issue. The good news from all this, construction costs seem to have stabilized, with the exception of a few items such as concrete, steel, and electrical equipment. Upcoming, I will be attending a KCADC Women in Development event tomorrow evening. And then the Southern Economic Development Council will meet the consultants conference in Atlanta, which is another event or conference heavily attended by site selectors and EDCs. I've done a lot of presentations. We as a team have done a lot of presentations lately. Last month, we did an update to the city of Lansing. We did an update to the city of Tonganoxie. And then upcoming, I'm doing one for the city of Leavenworth tonight. So Paul, that'll be fun for you to hear all of this again. And then I've been invited to give about a 5-minute overview of LCDC for the Leavenworth Lansing Chamber of Commerce Governmental Affairs Committee Economic Development Forum, at which Lieutenant Governor David Tolan is the keynote speaker. And then a couple more items. LCDC, for LCDC specifically, we had our quarterly investor luncheon at Deer Ridge Estate last week. Hope most of you got to go to that. I thought it was really a good success. We had Julie Sailors and Kristen from Panasonic, just very informative meeting. And then I think that's it. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna leave the ISV alone. So that, I ended my report unless you have any questions.
Questions for staff? You have one on your Project River. It says southern part of the county, for a power plant. I assume that is down around, does it require a river?
No,
Or water or?
it does not. I'm not exactly sure what I can say and what I
didn't understand. I
shouldn't.
don't want to put in a position for that.
But there is a concern about flooding, and so they really wanted to know, are there levees down there? What's being done to keep that from flooding? But since this project, they have kind of expanded their interest in different areas throughout the county. So I need to update that. It's not just specifically that area.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much. There's a lot going on, obviously. Good news. That's what we like to hear. All right, we're going to move on to board terms and officers. And first up is the finalized, we started last week, conversation about chair and vice chair. And recall Greg was chair, I was vice chair a couple years ago, then he dropped off and I came on, and Doug is vice chair, and it would be generally move up one notch. And then I would get right off into the sunset like Greg did, but he's still here. If you we would love to have you do that, and we will need a vice chair for that next position to move in. And Vernon is not here. There you go.
Your list is pretty short.
There you go. And
Or we can wait till the end of the meeting where several people have to leave a little early.
if you-
Already in a position, you're out of luck.
Yeah, so
Okay.
if we have a volunteer, we can do that. If not, we would we can vote Vernon in and call it good. But so really, David, if you're interested,
I'll do it, I guess, yeah.
okay, I appreciate that.
Your pay will increase.
That's right.
We'll double it.
Yeah, significant amount, and all the respect you get in the whole world.
That's right.
People will hold you up on a pedestal just to throw rocks at you. Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and do that in next meeting. I'd be happy to help. And I can tell you, Greg helped me a lot. And these guys were all great to work with, so. All right, now, next up, the new board member, Tom, was appointed by the county commissioners. I don't know that there's anything official. For the record, he's gonna get us a copy of the resolution or whatever they did, put it into our records and make sure that it's all filed. And one of the things we're gonna get down here ways, I wanna make sure that we do stuff right. And I'll talk about that later, but welcome and thank you. And you know why we're welcome, you're always here anyways.
I'm here anyway, but now I've been voluntold.
Voluntold. I like it, yes. It's the story of our lives here. Okay, very good, thank you. Any other business on officers or?
So just to clarify, next meeting will make the change or you're going to?
No, we'll go, I think it's already been voted, and I guess we should vote for vice chair.
I move.
Second.
David.
So that's starting 2-year terms for him to be
Yeah,
Chair.
yeah, and then drop
starting
off.
next meeting?
Mhm. Yep,
See the train coming through?
Yeah.
so we have a motion and a second. Any additional conversation? All those in favor of railroading David, say aye. Any opposed? All right,
I think we should always try to keep cognizant of the term of that too.
Yeah.
We don't have to turn around and like somebody else.
right. And that's always a risk in this crazy group. And Tom, you better tee yourself up because you gotta get in line.
There we go. And we did just reappoint Greg. I don't know, you guys may have covered that, but, the city.
Okay.
Greg Collins.
If you would just provide, I wanna make sure we start to,
Lisa, do you have Sarah?
Get a little bit-
Our city clerk.
before my
Yes,
job as
Sarah.
chair is over.
Yeah, she can send you.
I don't know, I think he's been treasurer for years, so I think I came on, but it's probably a year then.
So you got 3 years left.
I don't know. Is it 4-year terms?
Well, the last time we did, we had all these people playing at the same time, then we had to go back and change them up a little bit so that they didn't all.
Yeah, so they didn't all fall in. They
But
weren't all,
he's replacing Dirk's term, so
Right.
he's got a,
whatever that cycle is.
yes, okay.
Yep. We're gonna get it cleaned up here one of these days. You know, for like 50-something years,
We
it just
probably
ran it by
have a thing that
itself.
only shows it in the minutes each month that we could, if we had like
I think you've got a spreadsheet.
Yeah, you want a spreadsheet
a slate of whatever, whoever's
in
there.
each packet?
Well, every
Well,
quarter or
if
something,
there's-
just so we were aware of it.
Yeah,
Okay,
Like I had to get, for me, I had to get who all the players were, for goodness sakes. A lot of these people have been here for a long time, and know it, like, I don't, I wanna know who I'm looking on the screen.
Right.
And is that Lansing, Leavenworth, who the hell is that? We do the same thing with the terms,
okay,
expires, so and so, and what have you. And of course, each of the cities in Mercer County has a right to withdraw their members at any time too.
yep. Any additional there's Vicky. Hello, Vicky. Any additional conversation? We'll move on to, progress 2024.
Yes, so in your packets, you all have a copy of the ad and the article that were submitted. They will be in a side-by-side layout. I checked with the Times this morning and, the magazine will go out in Saturday's edition. And the, Kathy Heptig is the one who, came around and sold the ad space, and she will drop us off several copies
Okay.
in your office.
You distribute, if you wouldn't mind that electronically, I'd appreciate it. If you have one, if you get it electronically.
I will, absolutely. Well, she said that it would be available electronically, so I will make sure I figure out how and send that out. There is one tiny little typo in this.
Oh,
Nobody has noticed it but me, so I'm not gonna point it out. But I did ask them to fix it before it went to print, so it should not be in the final copy.
well, I better not send you any emails. I'll be in trouble.
If you want her to read something to preview, she's the one.
Ooh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Darn spell check. Okay, any questions on that report? We'll get that out and looking forward to seeing the whole package. It'll be good. Okay, regional transportation update. Any updates at all, Greg, or?
Well, I became aware of a call for projects for PSP projects. I think there might be two projects that we want to at least consider. They would both be studies. One would be for the 158th Street, 20th Street, McIntyre Road study that would probably involve Baser, Lansing, Leavenworth, and probably Leavenworth County. It's capped at 200,000 with an 80-20 split. So we might see if we can get the four entities together and maybe work out something on that 20% split. I haven't reached out to Bill. Probably need to reach out to Bill Knoll first and then reach out to Leavenworth, Lansing and Baser and see if there's any interest. The second one would be a study for a Kansas River crossing between Leavenworth and Jefferson counties. Leavenworth and Johnson counties, I'm sorry. There's no river between Leavenworth and Jefferson. So I think this would relate more to, extending access down into Johnson County for Panasonic and all that. So again, I'll reach out to Bill hopefully this week and see what we need to do. And I don't know if we'll get anything out of Mark or not, but we probably ought to at least keep throwing darts at him. Other than that, that's all I've got on that.
See, Bill is not on. Any comments or thoughts or questions? Anybody have anything else to add to the conversation? I think transportation is obviously should always be on the forefront. Well, thank you, Greg, very much. Next up is the Industrial Site Committee update, and Lisa.
I think Dan and I will tag team. I was just gonna say that basically we had so the Industrial Site Visioning Committee has kind of finalized their education portion. So we've had all kinds of experts come in and the utilities, and now recently the rail. So now it's time to discuss how do we want to score these properties. And so they're talking about doing putting together a subcommittee that will do an initial flush because there'll be a lot of pieces of land to look at, and they're talking about the scoring criteria that will be used for that. And then they've discussed having the entire committee look through the final grouping of properties and go through those with a more detailed scoring criteria. Would you say anything else?
Yeah, we're using the scoring criteria to filter some of the obvious stuff that's nowhere near that we can't afford to do the infrastructure and stuff too. So proximity to railroad, proximity to highways, proximity to some of the key grading areas. We've got a couple of people that are expertise on who owns what. So if there's a number of smaller plots together, but it's all the same family, we may group them into a site for consideration, things of that nature. And then we've got a couple of people on the committee that does the site grading in their real job, not the volunteer job. So that's where the subcommittee comes in with each of those to go through it, grade it, and then once we've gone through an initial blush of it, just on the ones that are doing the filtering, come together with the grader team for everybody to vote on.
Just a footnote, that as you can imagine, and I said on the committee, and as you work through all this, where does this land come into play and what's efficient and it's all around the cities, obviously, within most of it. It encompasses a big part of the county, but you obviously have to have access to water and sewer and power and transportation, and those things are all on the list, and when when the committee gets finalized and presents, we'll obviously present to the full board and then to our partners. We hope that it makes a lot of sense and in an efficient way that, you know, does the political body, what do the cities and the county do? What is this something we want to tackle? And good work, and it's really interesting information, and we have opportunities, and you never really think of what they are until you start putting them together, and that's what the committee's doing. And it's not an overnight project. It is a long term, but it was really good to see the committee work, and I gotta tell, Tom, his maps are really great. We're getting maps from.
Oh, you're about to get a ton more.
And Tom's been hugely beneficial in running that through the county. Their GIS folks are doing great, and it's really helpful to understand where we're talking about. So thank you, Tom. We appreciate that. And whoever at the county, they need to know that we appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Any other questions about the site committee? Okay, we're gonna move on to long-term funding for LTPA, and if you all recall, and Greg, I don't wanna steal any thunder, but we discussed forming a committee, trying to identify a funding mechanism for the Port Authority to do some of these things that we're talking about with a consistent, steady fund. We don't have any answers, but we discussed not tackling it during this November election just because there's just too much going on at the poll. But maybe in the spring of next year, and really the committee would be comprised of Greg and others, myself, and whomever else wanted to be involved to find out what is the best thing to do to start to look at funding, dedicated funding methods for the Port Authority, which we have the ability to fund directly. And there's a million different ways to do it, but what is the appropriate way to do it? And what is the appropriate way to go ask taxpayers to help us? And if there is no appropriate way, don't do it. So Greg, I wanna let you kind of chat, and I'd like to follow up with some other stuff.
Sure. Yeah, when the group got together, basically what you had said, I'm in the process probably here the next month that I will have a Zoom meeting with the group. I'm trying to get the group comprised mainly of non-elected, non-city staff personnel, because I think if it goes into a campaign, it works better because of staff and elected politicians are somewhat limited in what they feel they can do or can't do. Where a business individual can basically do whatever they want, and they're not gonna take a political recourse. So I think we're in pretty good shape. I need to find someone down in the Baser area that we can put on the committee. I've reached out to Leslie, I've not heard anything back. But I'm looking for some type of a business person down there that was familiar with economic development, would be supportive of our cause, and I think the more people we have from the different communities, it's gonna work better if we do a campaign, that they know, hey, this isn't a Leavenworth thing or a Lansing thing or a Baser thing or a Tongi, it's all of us together, and we've got representatives from everywhere. So I'm still looking for that position. The Leavenworth Lansing area, I think we're fairly good on it. We've got Jeremy, David, myself, Mike Riley. Those are the ones that come to mind right away. Again, Tonganoxie, we've got Chris. Chris knows of somebody else in Tonganoxie that I don't want you to get caught in a political game either. Lansing, I'm open for suggestions, I guess. So, but I think we'll probably start planning on that. And then with an idea that we would probably do some type of a mail-in ballot if we end up going that way, would be probably a February, March of next year, in that range. Second thing that the committee did come up with, possible ways to increase funding, was to look at the commitments from the private members. I think that was something Jeremy and Lisa were gonna look at. I don't know if anything's happened on that or where we're at with that, but I know a lot of the commitments of, Westar, Kansas Gas, some of those people. I think there might be some opportunities to ask for some more money there. And even some of the private companies, Lexico, Great Western. Care Pharmacy, I'm just mentioning a few. So I guess that's something you guys are still considering or working on, or.
Investor committee, right?
That would be more of an investor committee, yeah. We'll mention that at the next meeting.
Well, I know a lot of the levels have not really gone up for 20 years.
Well, yeah, you're right. You mean for LCDC specific?
Yeah, for support of LCD.
Yes, well, we did just recently adjust them so that it is bringing a little bit more in. We're looking at ways, the ISB, the investor committee has been looking at ways to increase their sponsorships for different events. We've added events. And then we've got a study being done, a revenue study, hopefully is coming out very soon to kind of give us some other ideas.
Okay.
We've looked at, there are several companies that you can hire to do like a campaign. They're very costly, just right out of the gate. You're gonna pay $30,000 for a study to be done to determine how much they think extra they can get for your organization, and then it can be a couple $100,000 by the time you're done, because you're paying for them to be here, you're paying for them to do the campaign, you're paying. And then you do not have a guarantee that you will receive an increase in your funding. So we've talked about it. There wasn't a real appetite to take that risk at this time. But I mean, that's why we established the investor committee to look at other ways.
Okay, well, that might tie into kind of the bill rate too, with education. That if you try to do them together and you kind of educate people all at the same time, it's probably gonna help the vote a little bit. Because I think people are gonna tend to vote no if they don't understand what you're trying to accomplish and what it could end up saving them in the long run. So. I don't know if we need to have some conversations with the investment committee or not, or what their thoughts are too, so.
I'm sure they would be open to that.
Boy, anything else, Chris?
No, that's all.
Well, one thing from a housekeeping perspective, and this comes the old banker in me that is used to rules and being hammered by FDIC and the state banking department for 40 years on rules. I'd like to think that we are properly structured and that we are doing things right. And if we go out and we ask for some type of taxpayer assistance to fund economic development to the Port Authority, it seems to me that we better be damn sure we're correct. And you guys see what I see, and I saw a statute or something back in 1969 between Leavenworth and the county. I think it was 69. And then a joint resolution back in 2000, my dates are wrong. That's all I've ever seen. Are we properly structured to accept and do what we think we're going to do? And I'm not smart enough to know that we are or not. And I'm not trying to create work. I'm not trying to create problems, but and maybe Vicky knows, or maybe somebody from one of the cities know how this works, and know Paul. We get to boot him out the door here pretty quick, and but to me, as a old banker who follows rules, I want to make sure our rules are right, and that when we look a taxpayer in the eye and we say this is what we were asking you to vote on, that there's no mud coming back in our face because we are. Well, you didn't do it right, and somebody out there figures it out and says, look, they're not even structured right. So I would suggest not today, that when we have legal counsel, we've had them for contracts, we've had them for multiple things, and maybe the county can do it, but from a Port Authority perspective, I would suggest that we consider it, talking to some legal counsel. And Dan, you sit in on bond ratings, and I'm sure that Vicky does, and all these city people. You get bond counsel to tell you to do it. This is how you need to do it. This is how you do it right. Now, and from a municipal perspective, I think we're probably obligated, and I want some feedback. This is Chris's idea, because I'm just paranoid.
But didn't we do that when we decided we were gonna have representation from each city and the county? I mean, before it was just,
I don't know. I don't know any of that. And that's why I'm saying it probably would behoove us to seek some counsel to make sure we're structured correctly, that we're not gonna be an embarrassment to the county or to any of the city partners. I don't wanna do that. That we can do what we think we can do. And then how do we properly write whatever we're gonna, I can write up something for a ballot. But it may be the dumbest thing on the face of the planet. I prefer not to do that. So I'm looking at Paul, and I know Paul, so we'll call you at Shawnee and see if you can help us out.
Well, we only have two port authorities in the state of Kansas, so we certainly reach out to the other port authorities.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say. Do we know how they are
I
funded or
don't know,
what
I
they do?
don't even know who it is.
Who's the other Port Authority?
down like in.
Kansas City.
Is it?
No.
No,
it's
thought
Western
Western
It's in
Kansas.
Western
It's like
Kansas.
Hutch or.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's not much.
I mean, I can get up for it.
To me, I think
Hayes gets me too, for some reason.
just thinking I think I know scares me. When I start to think I'm pretty smart, I get quickly snap back to think, make it look pretty stupid, and I would prefer not to do that.
When all the players have set it up originally.
Yeah, so that's why I'm asking the board, I'm not asking for any decision, and I really would love feedback from the county or from the cities. Let's do this right.
Absolutely.
And if we're gonna do it right, let's get somebody who can research and tell us, and here's what it looks like. Here's what statute tells you, here's the rules, so we can follow. At least Chris would prefer that. If my council could throw me off tomorrow, and that's fine, but that's my suggestion. So I'm not looking for answers today, but I want you to think about that specifically. If you think I'm out of line, say so. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. But if we're gonna go out and ask and then take and receive, by chance, we do get that done, and we're receiving taxpayer money, are we doing things correctly? Yeah. And that's really important for me, because that's gonna be a legacy thing of this committee, or this board, if it does happen. If it doesn't happen, but I can tell you, I sat in many of these meetings 30 years ago, and it didn't change much for 40, 50 years of Port Authority, just not much. And I always wonder, are we structured correctly? So anyways, please think about that.
We had the same chair for all those years, she never changed, so.
Right.
So maybe we should.
Just keep the same chair, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and any feedback, please, folks. I see Vicky, George, Crystal, who else? Penny, any of you.
Vicky said she would help. She sent a message,
Okay.
so.
I just want to make sure we get it right, and we have legal counsel that can go out and check this stuff for a little bit of money. We have the money. I think preventive medicine is better than,
Stafford County.
Yeah, this searches of Stafford County, Leavenworth County, Port Authorities, Kansas City, Missouri has a port authority.
I think, I agree with you, Chris. It's very important when you start dealing with tax money, mill rate levies, that you do it right, because lawsuits come by easy and then you have to defend yourself and,
Do we need to be prepared on what are we gonna do? I mean, it seems like that's gonna be the first question everybody's gonna ask
Yeah.
is, what are you gonna do with all this money? And it's easy to say, we're gonna build another industrial park, and they're gonna say, well, we got one sitting here, we got one sitting in, so that's my fear of the whole thing. I don't know the timing and everything.
totally agree.
Well, that's part of it, as we roll out the next year, to just educate the populace, so we're gonna succeed.
Exactly, yeah, it's
Exactly
gonna have
what
to be some,
We're targeting, we're also trying to not take, in my mind, and I'm not fishing the tree, well, I guess in my mind, it's also take some of the political pressure off the elected officials in that particular regard. They can certainly appoint the members to the board or withdraw them at any time, but it's a clear where that money's gonna go to. And unfortunately, like, we answer to the county, the cities and everything for our funding. We could cease to exist tomorrow. It'd be terrible to happen after 60 some odd years, but we don't want our legacy to cease to exist.
David, one of the things you haven't seen yet, but we will, we work on budget every year and we generally send a pretty good budget over, which includes a lot of different things other than just funding LCDC.
Right.
Marketing, which we do very little, and you know.
Well, yeah, I remember that with LCDC, we always told Steve, we'll ask for a little bit more and see what we can get. You can always, they can always cut it and try to go from there.
This
but-
last year, we did a lot more because we asked for an inspect building program, we asked for industrial site. I think,
We've had studies and.
study, marketing for it, so yeah, we asked for.
And I think
Yeah.
that our partners tell us what we can help them with, and that, I think that's a big piece of, you know, if the county needs a transportation study.
Well, that's what I'm saying, the stuff that he brought up, that they're gonna pitch everybody into, is that's the kind of stuff that,
Right, and I think I guess my thought was the committee would maybe come up with some recommendations. If this passes, where does it go? And then it would come back before the Port Authority or LCDC for kind of a final approval, but at least bring some recommendations and, cause it's gonna depend on, are you gonna try to get a quarter of a mil, a half a mil, 3/4, 4 mil? What are you gonna try to do and what do we think will fly?
It's like, I suspect the majority of the populace in the county doesn't understand that the Carlson Business Park was given to us all those years ago. And they give us 150 acres of land. And then, of course, it costs a little bit more, but how do you measure it off against and what Lisa presents to us when we can't get businesses here because we don't have a building to offer? Having been at CMOP for all those years, I'm anxious for them now to relocate to Johnson County simply because we've got a building of significant size and stature there that we can then bring in another taxpaying entity. So, and we all know, we compete against Lenexa, we compete against Olathe, Marion, Shawnee, just on the campus side, they put buildings up.
The overall plan, David, I think, and it's an excellent question, what we're gonna do with that, we need to have that answer. But all the things we are doing, the site committee, the, LCDC and marketing, there are just so many things that we're battling as being underfunded.
well, I think ever since I've been on Port Authority, but LCDC, it's always just trying to legitimize yourself. And then the security of having that money coming in every year where you don't have to beg and plead. If you had some set amount of money that you had, and then you could say, well, this is the minimum that we need to do economic development, but then we've got these tiers of things that we want to do. That's what we need to do, and we need to give them some job security. I mean, the county, like you said, could pull it at any time, and then what are we gonna do? I mean, how much of the battle of what she has to do every day revolves around funding? And that's the biggest problem.
I think the focus would be trying to create economic activity with a pool that's dedicated to this board, and this board's responsibility is to distribute it appropriately for the benefit of the whole county. And how do we do that? I think the way it's structured with the appointments, I think it's legitimate, but I don't know that. I assume it's okay. And so my suggestion is making sure we're doing it right is just a piece of this big puzzle.
Right,
that we're putting
I think we
together.
could figure that out pretty quickly.
I do, and I do too, but I would sure like somebody who's smarter than me to write me a letter saying, you're good, Port Authority's good, or you ought to tweak this, or you ought to ask for resolutions or something to make sure that we're, first of all, protecting our partners, which is the cities and the county, protecting us, and protecting the taxpayers. I mean, I am one of them, and I want to make sure it's done right.
So are you saying maybe have a subcommittee to kind of talk this through and then, legal counsel to?
Yeah, the subcommittees for the funding and the process.
Okay.
I don't, the legal counsel, I'm not there yet, but I'm just saying that if we get to a point, because there's no reason to spend money. Attorney, no offense to you attorneys out there, but you can waste a lot of money with attorneys, and you know that. And, but you also can save your backside.
It's a relatively straightforward question to an attorney with experience in this.
Yes.
It's here's what we wanna do, here's who we are. You know, what do you think? I mean, we deal with this with some quasi-public agencies in Leavenworth is, do they have the authority to put something on the ballot? Who crafts the question? Do they have a sponsoring agency? Who handles the pass-through? And somebody that does this, again, it's a pretty straightforward question, so. And I completely agree with you. Getting that resolved is just one less thing you have hanging over you as you're thinking about it.
Yeah, and I don't think it's earth-shattering, you know.
No,
I think it's just something that we could get a comfort in saying, okay, that piece is tight and neat and it's over here, we don't have to worry about it.
And maybe Stafford County has already answered these questions. In certain regions, since there's only two of us in the state.
There's not much economic development out there. Flour mill and a bunch of farmland, so
What city are we talking about though?
it's way out, it's outside of,
Is that Hayes?
no, it's south.
It's south.
Yeah.
I looked at the map, I didn't even recognize any of the big cities over there.
But that doesn't mean they haven't answered those questions.
Baser's probably outgrown the whole county in
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's mainly farmland.
If you all would just think about that, I don't wanna burn any more daylight on it, but just think about it, cause, I mean, as a board member, I would feel a lot better.
I think we have to before we proceed. I wouldn't want to be approved of funds or get it approved simply because we did a good marketing job, just to find out that we can't do it.
Would either you or Lisa or somebody maybe reach out and talk with some people, maybe bring something back?
Say that again.
Would either you or Lisa maybe reach out to some attorneys that deal with
Yeah.
this and maybe bring something back to us
Yeah.
at the next meeting or?
Yep, I will do that.
Well, Vicky said she would help.
Or Becky said she would help.
4,000 people in the county.
Oh.
I doubt they're doing a lot of economic development in Stafford County. But they have a port authority if they need to. Okay, thank you for listening to me. I appreciate that. I apologize for burning your daylight. Moving on to Panasonic impact, any updates at all? We had a good Panasonic meeting at LCDC this week, or last week. Very good. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Does anybody have any feedback that would help the group?
Oh, thank you for the invite. That was very
Yeah,
much
that was very,
appreciated.
very good presentation. It's not what I thought it was gonna be, but I mean, as far as the batteries that they're making. So.
But you know, all those batteries go inside those big batteries.
Yes.
That's how they make those big batteries.
Yeah. Which is pretty amazing, actually.
It is, yeah.
So all my little AA batteries that are sitting in my drawer at home, you know, I can take them and build them in some giant thing and
Yeah.
run the Empire State.
1,000 or so of them together and there you go.
Has anybody driven by the Panasonic building recently?
Yeah.
It's enormous. And
It's incredible.
what's also impressive, is next to the Panasonic building is another 1 million square foot building that is also gigantic.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
I think it was positive that they don't anticipate all or most of their suppliers to come into that business park.
Yeah.
I believe there's opportunity for Leavenworth County to no end and to every corner of the county. I really do.
Exactly.
Exactly. And we just gotta figure out how to take advantage of it.
I think I learned about the little batteries when I dropped mine to the wall and the damn thing broke. It's, oh, wow.
Full batteries, wasn't
It's
it?
full of little bitty batteries.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna go on, because I know we got a couple guys heading out. Affiliated partners, okay, I'm looking up, and we're gonna go with Penny. Is it okay?
I'll do it.
Okay.
My last one, I'll handle it.
50-50 chance that I lost. Fire
I'll
away.
go last if you wanna.
Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and go with Crystal. Maybe we
Hi,
will.
there, I can get myself unmuted. Good afternoon. We obviously have a lot going on here at the city of Baser. However, today our big focus is our ribbon cutting for our city hall. So we're super excited about that. I won't belabor any points, but yeah, super excited for that. 4 o'clock, if anybody wants to come out and take a look at our beautiful new facility, by all means, please do. We'd love to have you.
All right, thank you. All right, Tom, you wanna take county or
Yeah, I can do that.
Vicky or whoever?
I can do that. Working with Lisa on a couple of projects she mentioned earlier, energy related. There's another energy related project that has surfaced, and I'll bring Lisa in on that. I think it's good just to kind of show a dual front on that. Working with a local real estate, guy, I don't know that he's necessarily part of a company, with some site selection items that he's presented. Industrial Site Visioning Committee, we talked about that. You mentioned our GIS department. They have quite a few things to get working on here for the next couple of weeks. This morning attended a MARC Total Transportation Committee meeting. And really one of the more interesting things that came out of it, and you guys hear me talk about population demographic stuff all the time, but was that essentially nationwide, our workforce issue isn't going to come to a resolution anytime soon. And the facts and numbers that they showed this morning really demonstrate that it all has to do with fertility rates and birth rates at this point, of looking into the future. Where 20 years ago, the average family was having 3.66 kids, today it's 1.66 kids. That's 2 less workers that we've got off into the workforce. So those workforce issues probably are a longer term thing rather than, hey, let's just recover from COVID and everything will be good. But it's taking into some prior things that I've said, as that relates to us, it may not be that much of an impact to us, maybe it is the rest of the country, because the projection across Kansas is that within the next 20 years, 2044, Leavenworth County should, as they've kind of mapped out through Wichita State, mapped out that our population should increase by about 30% or somewhere between 18 and 20,000 more people within the next 20 years. That's actually pretty quick, pretty quick growth. The 46% of the state's population being in the 5 counties around us, another 16% in Sedgwick County. So you've got roughly 60% of the entire state is migrating into these 2 areas on the eastern side of the state. So that bodes well for us as far as workforce goes, generally speaking. Getting ready for a retail conference, setting up meetings with various retailers and retail developers. While I'm there, there's also I would call it a micro Team Kansas event while it's out there. It's not the full bore cool stuff, but a smaller one. And I guess I'll just leave it with that.
Questions, anybody? There's a lot going on.
Oh, yeah, Jeremy and I attended a Panasonic event geared towards small businesses and how they can get more involved with Panasonic and kind of get in front of them and and I think it was generally good, but Jeremy and I recognized pretty quick that we were the 2 guys in there that didn't run a food truck or have a small business. So we were kind of we were kind of the second thumb on the hand there.
Yeah, it was really directed toward people who are gonna be direct vendors and kind of on site. And it was truly like cleaning services, food vendors, light bulb replacement companies, just really local vendors for the facility, not even for the production.
Right.
Just for the facility. So it was, they gave us a QR code and a URL.
We weren't supposed to take pictures, so I hope you remember the exact placement of the QR code. What was black and what was white.
Well, I didn't hear that part. I didn't take pictures. So anyway, I passed it off to a couple local businesses who might be
So
interested.
somebody could benefit.
Someone like that, they also said, don't be surprised if you don't hear from us for a while, because they're expecting thousands of submittals.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a bit, pedestrian for what I think Tom and I were hoping for, but oh well.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so George, you're up.
All right, thanks, Chris. A couple of new projects that we're working. Polished and Decorative Concrete. It's a company that goes in and does the finished concrete floors for certain retailers, kind of in the Midwest region. They're clearing land on about a 6-acre site. It fronts 2440 and then Tonganoxie Drive to the rear. Will be initially about a 25,000 square foot facility, warehouse and office. Overall, it's about 60 jobs total, but again, it's not manufacturing. They go out on site to do things. So no incentives there. We're excited. A big reason we're excited is because the owner is local and it joins other companies like IST, Wilson Glass, DL Granite, Premier Landscape, where we're locating folks that live in the county. We're not discriminating against county residents here in the city of Tonganoxie. We're excited that they're choosing to grow their local businesses here and just thrilled to have them part of that group. We also did a pre-development meeting with a development firm out of Dallas. They're looking at a 3.5 acre site that's on the south side of 2440, looking to create a couple of retail and fast food pad sites. They've got some interested users and are moving pretty quickly with some environmental work on the site. So we're excited to see that activity. It's kind of directly across the street from where Roush Coleman's breaking ground on that 34 acres where they'll be building 142 single family homes. As far as the business park goes, if you haven't been by lately, DSM continues to go vertical, looks really good. Again, just a reminder, it's about a $65 million investment. We continue to dance the dance with the county on annexation for the 80 acres across from the business park. This week, we've taken a couple of calls on leads, project leads that are looking in that area where the property owner is directing them to the city with the hopes that, you know, annexation will happen so we can get zoning and push the utilities there across the street. So we're hopeful to get some resolution on that pretty quickly. One item I did want to tell everybody about just briefly, the city council approved an amendment to the development agreement with Hills last night. In short, when we did our development agreement with Hills, we called out a provision for a 20 mil held harmless impact to the school district. And working with the county clerk's office, they're unable to just simply check a box for EDX, which is the abatement used there, for anything other than the school's capital outlay mill, which for Tonganoxie School District is about 7.34 mils. And so what we did in this amendment is we worked out a fixed pilot payment with Hills for 10 years, starting in 2024, where they'll submit a pilot payment that's the equivalent to the kind of that balance. They'll already, you know, pay into the school's capital outlay, and then this pilot would, in theory, make up the difference. It is a fixed payment. It goes, there's a 5% annual escalator. But what's unique about that is that all the taxing entities, the way the pilot or payment in lieu of taxes works, it gets processed like a normal property tax payment. So there's entities, including the city, the county, the school district as well, that would get a portion, their regular prorated share of the pilot payment, just like the property tax payment over the next 10 years. And so a lot of those taxing entities we're not expecting to see that. And so we're hopeful that that's a welcomed revenue for all those taxing entities. So with that, I appreciate the time. Thanks.
About a couple $1 million over the next 10 years. So. All right, next up, thank you, George. Paul.
Sure. So just a couple of city things real quick is, city's trying to figure out how to get Wilson Avenue reconstructed. Zephyr invested, you know, well over $1 million, brought a new business, hired people, and Wilson Avenue is not suitable for trucks. We put about half the money from ARPA into that, and then the commission will decide this year during the budget process if we're able to fund the rest of that to support that business investment. For the business park, I think, you know, it gets closer and closer with Panasonic, and at some point, you know, the commission will have to decide if, you know, we want to start petitioning off that park for some smaller users. But I still argue that that park is well positioned for the future. And so I'm happy about that. I was hoping something would happen before I left, but it hadn't, but we'll get there. We put it out, but Penny will be the economic development contact for the city on anything related to the park or projects or approaching the commission with funding requests or anything. So please send all those through Penny. Commission is starting their budget process, and a lot of stuff going on in the city. And so finally, this is my last meeting. I had my last LCDC meeting, coming to these meetings for 10 years or so. And the only thing, you know, I'll say is thank you all, especially those not paid to be here, whether it's the LCDC board, whether it's Port Authority board, people who come to both meetings. I echo some of David's thoughts is, you know, I hope for you all for a day where you don't have to battle the little stuff and that all the attention can be put toward 1,000-acre business park instead of an 80-acre one, or highway projects or a full-fledged marketing attempt, but I've been amazed by this community's willingness to have people that fight the good fight, no matter what the hurdles. And I contend that anybody who's actually come to these meetings, LCDC or these meetings, are not the ones putting up hurdles. I think, the four-letter word Tyson, the one lady came to 2 or 3 meetings after that, went through, realized, hey, they do know what they're doing, and stopped coming. So anybody who puts in the time and sees it, I mean, she was gonna be the watchdog, and then it was like, oh, they do business meetings and they're taped, so anyway, I digress, but it's, I don't know how you do it, but I've learned a lot, and I appreciate all the effort that this community's put in, this county's put in, and I'll be watching from just down the road, but thank you all for friendship and what I've learned from you all over the time.
On behalf of the board, and I'm sure I speak for them, we appreciate the work you've done and the teamwork. You've always been a good advisor. And that is so critical to a lot of us. A logical head, a balance. And even though you worked for the city of Leavenworth, you always worked for the county, for everybody in it. And I appreciate that. I really, really do. We're gonna miss you. I guess if you get bored, we can probably get a seat for you somewhere up here. You got nothing to do down there, but thank you very much for your support of the county and all you've done for us. We do appreciate it.
Let us know how going home is.
Yeah.
Let us know. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not so good.
All right. Thank you very much. We're right at 1 o'clock. Anything else for the good of the order? Always remember to aim low, they're riding shadows. Have a good one. We'll see y'all. And stop. Good meeting.
Hi, Jenna. Appreciate all. You're welcome.
I know I get paranoid at times, but man, if you've been beat up by the FDIC for 40 years, yeah. Here's the rules, and they're 3,000.